Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Rachel Melito and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for Executive Education at the Yale School of Management. We hope that you're doing well and we appreciate you taking the time to join us for this Introduction to Yale CPWA prep course, Wealth Management Theory and Practice. This is one of two online financial certification programs we offer. It's modeled after our successful CIMA online program, Investment Management Theory and Practice. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, was instrumental in creating both programs, so he knows them inside and out. Please engage with us during the webinar and don't hesitate to ask all of your questions. Jim is very knowledgeable, and this is your opportunity to pick his brain. We may hold some questions, but we'll do our best to answer all of them. To ask questions, please either use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or use the chat function, particularly for any technical issues. Now to introduce our program director. Jim Dobbs is CPWA certified. He is also CFP and CIMA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for the last 20 years, helping to build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments and Wealth Institute. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. Jim directed and taught in the classroom version of the CPWA course for many years and has now partnered with us to bring his expertise and enthusiasm to Yale and in turn to you. You will see he is passionate about what he does. He's committed to success, and he measures his success based on yours. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you very much, Rachel, and hello, everyone. So let's talk about CPWA, the certification, what it is, what it's not. I think that's an important distinction. We'll also talk about our program at Yale. What we want to try to do is give you information, of course, but I want to actually try to help you over the next hour, give or take, figure out if this is the right path for you and the right certification for you. So no questions are off limits. Now, I may not know the answer to your question, but all questions are good. So just go ahead and get those in there. Just a heads up, I'm going to go pretty fast because this is an info session. You know, we're not doing deep in the weeds tax analysis here or anything. That's for in the course. But I've been on a million of these, well, maybe not a million, but a lot of these info sessions, just like you, and they can get really dry and boring. So I want to jump around pretty fast. If I hit something and it kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and you want to ask me later in this session, go ahead and do that. So it's fine if I end up repeating myself a couple times because I want to move fast just to get through a lot of information and keep you from falling asleep, hopefully, as well. All right, so yeah, about an hour, give or take. We'll see how many questions you've got, but go ahead and start putting those in there and we will tackle them along the way. The only caveat perhaps is if you have a special situation like, hey, Jim, I'm unique. Well, everybody's unique, right? But I'm different because here's my background. It's really not wealth management or financial services. Do you think this would be a good fit? For something more involved like that, just reach out to me. You'll see my contact information a couple of times along the way. I'll be happy to have a quick phone call with you or email or Zoom or whatever just to kind of help you ferret out whether this is perhaps a good choice for you right now in your career. We'll start with IWI. So just so you know, IWI, Investments and Wealth Institute, they are your certifying body. I think most of you know that. At Yale, we don't deliver the certification to you. We offer a registered education course, which is one of your requirements to earn certification. We also, unlike any other program for CPWA, we bake in the test prep. So all of the test prep, and I'll show you that in a minute, is in our program. You don't need to buy anything extra like if you go to one of the other programs. It's all in one program together. But if you're not familiar with IWI, absolutely, jump on their website, spend 10, 20, 30 minutes there, over 20,000 members, a few different certifications. I think their publications are great because they're kind of a combination, and this is pretty unique. I'm not aware of any others like this. It's a combination of academic and practitioner journals. They have 3 now because they just added retirement, but investments, and then really a wealth management. It says investments and wealth review, but it's really more like wealth management. So I really love the investments journal and the wealth journal because they're really deep. They're academic, but not so academic I can't understand them. And so I think they're a great read. Okay, so check them out if you haven't already. All right, let's talk a little bit about the core topics. I would imagine most of you have looked at the topic list before. Here's my first offer of the day, and you see my emails down there. And I've got other emails, and you can send it to any of my emails. That'll be fine. If you don't have or haven't reviewed the like 5-page color-coded PDF version of this with all the line item core topics listed, there's like over 500 of them, then send me an email. I'll be happy to send that to you. You can find it on IWI's website or our website at Yale, but if it's easier just to shoot me an email, I'll be happy tonight or in the morning to send you that. But I think it's really important that you look through the detailed content outline, not just this high level that you're staring at right now, because look, this is going to take you 100, 200 hours, some of you more. And time is maybe your most valuable asset. Opportunity cost is huge, probably for most of you at this point in your career. So I want you to make sure that content is solid and going to help you in practice. And so in going through that topic list, the long version, I would just ask myself over and over, is knowing more about this going to help me in my practice? Is knowing more about this going to help me serve my clients better? Is knowing more about this going to help me bring in clients if that's my role or responsibility? If you get through the 5-pager and you're like, I'm not even sure if half of it was, then unless your boss is telling you you have to get this, and I know some management teams do that, then I wouldn't go here, at least not right now, because maybe there's a better opportunity for you out there. But if you're like, oh yeah, easily over half, 2/3, 3/4, most of it, whatever, then I think the topics, you can check the box on that this is going to be a good match. But the only way to know that on this certification or any other is go to their CBOC, their candidate body of knowledge, their topic list, their curriculum document, whatever they call it, and go through the detailed version of the topics you'll be covering. That's really the only way to get there. So as I've been rambling on, you've seen here, they break down their core topics into 4 domains, as they call them. So we've got kind of the human side, ethics, behavioral finance, family dynamics in that first bucket, if you will. Then we get into the more traditionally technical areas, tax, investments, risk management, asset protection, those kind of things. But here's where I'll draw the line of distinction between CPWA and CFP. CFP covers a lot more content in those core topic areas. But in CPWA, we're just going to take a much deeper dive in those areas. And we're really only going to focus on challenges and potential solutions for your high net worth clients. And when I say high net worth clients, let's just say that's 5 million in net worth and up. So 5, 10, 20, $50 million. Any of those clients would be in the sweet spot of what this curriculum was designed to help you with. Doesn't mean that the content's not helpful for your $1 or $2 million clients or your 100 or 200 or $500 million clients. It's just that 5 to 50 million is really the sweet spot for this curriculum. Then we get into charitable planning and estate planning, obviously really, really important for your clients that are worth 10 or 20 or $50 million, and then getting those assets in the most tax efficient way, in the best way that helps them have the amount of control that they want. Of course, there are caveats to that in terms of legal protection and asset protection and tax ramifications in terms of control. We'll talk about all of that. Another distinction between CFP and CPWA. When I did my CFP a million years ago, and maybe like you, I only had one course when I was earning my CFP in estate planning. So there's only so much you can do when you have one course and it's test centric. And so, yeah, we learned about the basic kind of trusts and what they were and what the parameters were and that kind of thing. But we're going to study about 24 different type of detailed trusts in CPWA, and we're going to go exhaustively into those details. So for most of you, it should be at a different level than what you saw before in your CFP or CHFC programs. And then we'll wrap it up with specialty clients. Your executives go through non-quals, qualified stock options, which kind of less pertinent now, but for those who have them, really, really critical. And there are a lot of details and rules, company, federal, and tax on those, even some strategy discussions to have on how to unwind those and or deal with the concentrated stock positions you end up with after electing those options. Closely held business owners. I did a lot of work in my 27 years in private practice with closely held business owners, not so much on the executive side. So I think a lot of you will, or many of you will be like me, like some of these areas, some of these buckets you're strong in because that's what you do regularly or that's what you're most interested in. But there'll be others where it's like, I don't really do that, or somebody else on my team does that. So this would be a good opportunity for you to brush up and kind of get caught up to speed in some of those. But with a closely held business owner, so your client's worth $20 million, but half of that maybe is in the value of their private company. So like, how can you be involved in that process? Obviously, you want to help or manage the liquidation event, and they get a $10 million check or $5 million after tax or whatever it ends up being. So how can you work with the attorneys and the CPAs to maybe not make firm recommendations because you may not be eligible or qualified to do that, but facilitate that process. So that's what we're going to try to help you get up to speed on. Same thing on tax. We're not trying to help you do tax compilations or even tax recommendations, but tax planning, yes, and tax discussions, yes. And that's at a higher level than most CFPs and financial planners out there. And then the only caveat I'll mention on retirement management is this is less about accumulation and more about distribution because we're assuming your 10, 20, $50 million client is already set for retirement or close to it. And so it's more about distribution of those taxable, well, they're going to be taxable assets now. They've been tax deferred to this point, and then transferring them down to the next generation or making charitable gifts. There's a little bit of tax accumulation, I think capital needs analysis, but unlike CFP, we're going to spend most of the time on the backside of the retirement management process and needs. All right, so hopefully that helps, but send me an email. Happy to send you that long version of the PDF. All right, so this is actually just right from IWI's website. I didn't feel like I needed to create anything new on this. And these are reasons that you might consider earning your CPWA. I think most of you probably already sold on the idea of CPWA, those of you who were on this webinar. That being said, some of your superiors, bosses, managers, etc., they may not know much about this, and they may need a little coaxing to either allow you to do it or allow you to use the marks in your practice in their company and or being reimbursed for it. Now, they do have IWI, I think they do have some good material you can put in front of those individuals at your firm if it's not widely recognized at your firm just yet. And it's third-party material. It's not just IWI saying how great they are and how great CPWA is. It's IT Group, Cerulli, CGI Worldwide, I think, has a white paper in there as well. So competitive differentiation, I think that's maybe the biggest no-brainer on why earn something like a CPWA. Look, we are in a super competitive business, or at least you are. I retired a few years ago. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And now just teach. I was lucky to be taught by a lot of great mentors and managers through my career, and I'm happy to turn that back now and help you guys. So anything you can do to differentiate yourself with all the competition competing for these decamillion and centimillionaire clients, I think is worth at least considering. Higher compensation, clearly, according to the third-party research on IWI's website. I mentioned the third parties that do that research. CPWAs tend to make more than CFPs, who make more than those who don't have a CFP. So, I think that goes without saying, but if you need to show that to a manager, somebody inside your firm, I think that could be helpful. Number 3 is the one I get most excited about. So when I see you guys at conferences and events around the country every year, it's the confidence that goes up. especially in CPWA. For example, it's not just confidence in talking about new strategies or really complex strategies with your current clients or even prospects. But as you guys know, as I had to do every single year, it's those semi-annual and annual meetings with the CPAs, the attorneys, and my clients. This is where you can really, really, I think, not just grow, but shine and help facilitate the planning process. If you're like me, I had a lot of clients. It was easily over half the time where we'd come out of a CPA meeting at the end of the year or an estate planning attorney, let's catch up and see if we need to do any new planning meeting. And all the jargon that's thrown around, my clients' heads were just swimming. So they needed me in the meeting when appropriate and certainly after just to kind of debrief and talk about, what is a slat? Never heard of a slat before. I've heard of grads, but they were throwing some new stuff around. So we really want to get you up to speed. Your confidence should go up significantly. Yeah, clearly this is Yale, so we're going to have expert instructors. I'll show you some of the key players there in just a minute. And relevant content. It's one of the things I'm most interested in any certification. I hold a number of certifications, not just the few that you saw on the homepage there, but I don't put them all out there in the public because I don't think they're all that important. Um, and I think it's confusing to the public. I think it's confusing to my clients when I had private clients. So I want to focus in on those that are the most rigorous and the most respected in the industry. So one of the reasons I've stuck with IWI out of all these years, although I love the CFP certification as well and a couple of others, it's because they care about the content. Is it going to help you in practice? Is it really that meaningful? And the focus is there. All right, a little bit more from IWI on CPWA. I'll let you look at the graphics, but the one I want to draw your attention to is accreditation. I really wish that you could only use accredited financial certifications in the United States. That's not the case. There are way too many of them. I'm not saying that they're all worthless or anything. I think I'm glad I went through some that were not accredited because maybe I got a little bit of knowledge here, specialized knowledge here or there or whatever, even though I don't use the certifications in the public, as it were. But for those that you're going to hold yourself out as being certified in, I think accreditation is really important. It just shows the public that you are going to go the extra mile when you don't have to. And you're not only going to do certifications when you don't have to, but you're going to choose those that are vetted at the highest level. And I do think that's important. All right, a little bit more about CPWA, but as it pertains to SEMA CFP and CFA. But you know what? Before I get into this, because there's a lot there for you to look at, why don't you look at that? And Rachel, let's see if we've got any early questions.
Okay, yeah, we have a couple of questions. So the first question is, what is the ideal candidate for this designation?
Yeah, good question. I wish I could say it's this little box, but it's not. I mean, I think it's anybody in financial services who's working with high net worth clients. And then again, I'm going to say that's a few $1 million minimum and up 5 to 50 million, say in the sweet spot in terms of who your clients are and who you're serving. But it doesn't matter whether it's insurance, investments, comprehensive planning, tax planning. I think all of those fit here because even if you're in a silo on a team, which is a very popular distribution model now within a lot of at least the big firms, I think knowing what the other guy or gal next to you is responsible for on the client team is really important. Doesn't mean you have to be an expert, and you're not going to be an expert after mastering this content, but you're going to be extremely qualified and competent in those areas. So I think even in the areas where you've got somebody else, estate planning is a great one. Most of you are not attorneys. We always have some attorneys in the CPWA program. We always have CPAs. We've even had IRS agents, IRS attorneys in our program over the years because they just want to see what those of us on the other side of the table are learning to help their clients with. So I think it's really anybody in that space on the financial services side working with those high net worth clients. Now, maybe it's just as easy to say, who's this not for? I think if you're brand new to the business, I think this is probably certainly very ambitious. It may be too much too early. Some of you, if you're 2 or 3 years in and you haven't finished or started your CFP, you probably need to do that one first. That one takes longer, as you can see here, a year and a half for most CFP candidates. It's not because that one is so much harder than CPWA. I would certainly argue the CPWA exam is harder than the CFP exam on a question by question basis. It's just the CFP covers a whole lot more ground than CPWA, and you're going to have to study a whole lot more material, including in test prep, to get ready for the CFP because they're just going to be picking little things here and there. Like, I studied 8 things out of that chapter and they only tested me on one. That's CFP. CPWA is different. It's more narrowed focus. But some of you need to do CFP or CHFC first to get your legs under you before you dive into the deep end with us on CPWA. So hopefully that helped a little bit, but feel free to ask a follow-up question if you need to.
Okay. And then there's, can I start the course at any point during the year, or is it only offered at set times?
Yeah, great question. So no quote traditional enrollment dates or windows here. When we set it up, the idea was, look, you guys are all busy and we'll try live sessions and see if people show up, but they didn't. Everybody wants to do it on demand. They want to study late on a Wednesday night when they get home or early Saturday or Sunday morning or whatever. So everything's on demand. And I mean, we give you all kind of guardrails, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Study plans, do's and don'ts, best practices. But you're going to come in whenever it works for you. So, like if you're in a heavy tax planning or let's say compilation practice, yeah, February, March, probably not the best time to start because you're going to have your hands full, in your practice on your job until you get through that first tax deadline in mid-April. So I think timing's important. And for any of you, as long as you can look out over the next couple months and go, okay, I don't see anything that's going to keep me from really diving in and getting started, then I think you go for it. But if you're like, well, holidays or the next 2 months, January, February, always my super busy months in my practice or on my job, well, then I would wait until that dust settles. Now, look, the dust is never going to settle for a busy, successful person. And I certainly realized that in my 27 years of private practice. But when you can look out over the next few months and go, that doesn't look any worse than really any other few months, then I think that's a good time to make the decision and jump in. So yeah, you'll come in whenever it works for you.
Okay. And then, so we have somebody here who lives in Mexico. So he's wondering if this is relevant for him. Can he use this with Mexican clients?
Ooh, good question. And I'll throw Canada in there as well. So the short answer is maybe. Here's the more helpful, and for any of the others of you who are not in the U.S. or very big important or serving U.S. clients or clients that are subject to the U.S. tax code, then this is not the program for you. You're going to spend a lot of time in the tax code, the U.S. tax code. It's complicated. It's way over complicated. Of course, that gives you and me an opportunity to serve our clients and show some depth of knowledge and wisdom, and they pay us handsomely for that. But it's going to be many dozens of hours at least that any of you, even if you're well experienced, are going to be in the U.S. tax code. So if you're in Mexico and you have U.S. clients, I think this could work. If you serve clients or you're back and forth between the U.S., that could work. But if you're in Mexico, Canada, Australia, I spend a lot of time in Singapore because I have an education company there too. That would not work. For a Singaporean that has no U.S. clients and doesn't have any plan to, then you would learn a lot, but it wouldn't be so applicable. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But in your situation or anybody else in that kind of boat, feel free to reach out to me by email and give me a little more detail, and we can kind of get down into the weeds a little bit more to make sure. Because what I don't want you to do is sign up, get in there, realize, oh my gosh, I can't use most of this, or at least it's not applicable. We don't want that. So let's have that conversation before you make that decision. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, and then we have a couple more. So this person says, if I'm 23, would you recommend I take this course now or later, closer to 5 years of experience of work? They work at an IRA as an associate advisor to multiple UHNW clients, and they passed their CFP last year, can wear their letters next spring.
Yeah, okay, great. So had you not added the CFP part at the end, I probably would have said you might want to wait, but let's talk about it offline or at least away from the rest of the group here in the webinar. But you just did your CFP. So even though you don't have a lot of practical experience, 3 years, you got to wait 2 more years. Even if you pass the CPWA certification exam, you would have to wait till your 5 year anniversary in the business to be able to use CPWA. And we have, it's under 10%, but we do have a number of people that don't quite have their 5 years yet. And they're just knocking this stuff out along the way, knowing they have to wait to 5 years. But you just did your CFP. So it's fresh. You have momentum in terms of study, presumably, and confidence. Yeah, I think now could be a good time for you to jump in and just go ahead and get your CPWA done. Again, knowing that you get in, you get approved, you do our course at Yale, you prepare at Yale, pass your certification exam, you still have to wait another 2 years or 1 year or whatever it is left by the time you finish the exam before you can use the marks. Good question.
Okay, and what is the average weekly time commitment?
Good question. That one's a loaded question, but it's a great question. I got some, having done this for many, many years, and yes, as Rachel mentioned at the beginning, they brought me in as the initial consultant to create CPWA. So worked with thousands and thousands of candidates. There are a few different paths in terms of timing that I see, and I'll share those with you in just a minute. So a little teaser there.
Okay, and then is the test included in the fee? If not, how much is the test?
Yeah, so another teaser. Ours is all inclusive. Um, we're the only ones. That being said, the only caveat to that is if you fail the exam, fortunately, not a big percentage, and I'll talk about that too in a minute, of our candidates, most of them pass on the first attempt. I think it's $200 or $225, something like that, for additional attempts on this exam. Again, that doesn't happen to many of our students or our candidates, but that would be the only other fee. Good question, though.
Okay, and there are a couple other questions, but I believe you're going to answer these upcoming. So I don't know if you want to
No, yeah, no
continue
problem. We'll
going.
just wait on those and we'll get them all done. I think we're about halfway in, and I think we can, even if we have a handful of questions at the end, I think we'll be able to get that done by the end of the hour. So we'll just hold off on those. So keep those questions coming in. Great. Okay, so you stared at this long enough. By the way, you will get a copy of this video next week along with the slides. That being said, if I went over something too fast or you want to hear it again, you could go on to our landing page, the Yale CPWA landing page. And if you scroll down, there is the last video recording of this session that I did. So you could just watch that and skim through it if you need to, pry out or dig out any details. That being said, on this particular chart, the other thing I wanted to mention, of course, is SEMA CFA, completely investments, exclusively investments, CFP, CPWA, not everything, but pretty inclusive, not just investments, but tax, financial planning, estate planning, retirement, asset protection, all those kind of things. The difference is CPWA is going to take the deep dive in the areas that are probably most germane to your high net worth clients versus CFP, which I strongly promote and recommend as well. It's really for any type of client that you could be having, even those that have no net worth because they're still in debt from school or mismanagement or whatever. All right, so I think that's about it on that particular slide. So we've kind of alluded to this, but there are some requirements to earning the certification. I don't call them prereqs anymore because the 5 year experience is a good example. IWI allows you, even before you hit your 5 year anniversary, as we just talked about on that question just a minute ago. So you can start this before you hit your 5 years. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that if your background lines up and you're ready for this. And so I would encourage you to not let that be a hindrance. You do need to hold a bachelor's degree if you don't have a bachelor's degree, and that's not the case for all certifications, but for this one, yeah, you got to have that. Or if you don't have a bachelor's degree from an accredited university, any one of these certifications or designations, according to IWI, would suffice in lieu of that bachelor's degree. You do have to pass a background check. Your U4s, if you're in the financial services investments industry, is what they're probably going to pull. Complete that application truthfully and thoroughly because they're going to match those up. They're going to match up your regulatory background that they pull up with your application. 5 years, just mentioned. Then you got to pass a registered education course, and that's a little bit different. I mean, that sounds like, well, yeah. No, a lot of certifications, including the ones you've heard of, do not require you to pass a registered education course. So Kaya, CFA, they don't require you. It's all about test prep and passing challenging exams. And so that's just a different model. But for CFP and CPWA, yeah, you do have to pass a registered education course. I think there's only 3 of them for CPWA right now, but you could check with IWI as they are your certifying body and confirm that. But it's us at Chicago booth. That's the program I started. I took to Chicago 15 years ago now or something and did the live in person. And then IWI said we need another provider and online. So as Rachel mentioned, I went ahead and set up the first ever online program here at Yale. And then you're going to take and pass your certification exam. So for most of you, that will be the last thing you do because you already have 5 years. You'll get your licensing paperwork, and I'll talk about that in just a second. All right, real quick, because you can go onto the IWI website. They got a whole page for this. They do have, from time to time, not always, but scholarships available. So if you see any of these categories and you're like, I don't know, maybe. Well, I mean, they start at like $1,000. So I think that's, if I'm you, I mean, that's probably worth 10 or 15 minutes of my time to fill out an online, no obligation application to see if I even qualify for a scholarship, because who knows? It could come up big. So go to their website. My recommendation is do that before you apply for candidacy. It's not the end of the world if you do it the other way around, but the best way to do it is apply for your scholarship first. And then after you get the answer yes or no, then you apply for candidacy. All right, here is that process. So not counting the scholarship application, let's assume, that's kind of like 1A, and then 1B is submit the application. They're going to go through your application, pull that background, make sure everything looks fine. And, I don't think I would ever teach in a program or promote or recommend a certification if they didn't do that. And a lot of them don't. I think that's really important. As we all know, there are a lot of bad actors in our business. There's a lot of money in our business. There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of money moving around. That's just going to attract bad actors. So anything we can do collectively, and in this case, individually, by choosing a certification that requires that, let's just purge. Let's just purge as much as we can, and let's get those people out of this business. They're just hurting people. Of course, in the end, it hurts the profession. It hurts us as well. Okay, so once you get approved, they say, congratulations, Jim, they being IWI. You have been accepted as a CPWA candidate. You've chosen Yale. We've sent your name to Yale. They will contact you. Just so you know, it's about a week for IWI to review your application. Sometimes they get backed up and it's 2 weeks, but usually about a week, you're going to hear back from them, yay or nay. And again, it's usually yay, unless there's something interesting in your application or your background that came up. And that takes us about a week too, because it's Yale. There's a formal process for you. You're not a traditional student. This is not for academic credit, but there's still a process to get you set up at Yale. It takes us about a week to get you set up as well. So it's about a 2-week process from the moment you decide, hey, I'm going to apply online for candidacy. All right, so you pass our course. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then you pass the certification exam. Once you pass that, assuming you've also hit your 5 years, they're going to run one more background check on you. Then they're going to send you the licensing paperwork, and you're going to be good to go. So you can see this is a process. I mean, it's serious. And I think that's important. It's important for you, in my mind, and it's important for the profession. It's certainly important for the public. This should be a process. This should not be pay $750, get some online study material, and take a test on Sunday and get my designation. I'm not saying there's not value in that learning process, but it's not at this level. Okay, our goals and objectives always good, I think, to understand what we're trying to help you do. Now, there are about 30 or 35 things that we have in the survey that we're going to send you after you take the test, pass or fail. But here are the big ones. We certainly want to cover all the 500 topics. Between the course and the test prep, we don't cover all 500 in both. Some of them we do, but it's at least one or the other. We want all of those topics to be covered in what we think is a helpful way, either for the test or in your practice. Number two, of course, is to help you get through the certification exam. I think that's a real differentiator in our program. And in terms of the high pass rate, we're very proud of our candidates. And it's not like we have silver bullets. I don't know that anybody works harder to help their candidates get through, but it's a testament to our candidates doing what we ask them to do and putting in the time to be ready for a challenging exam. The one that I like the most, that I focus on, even though it's hardest to measure perhaps, is just making sure this is relevant. And the way I can do that, at least anecdotally, is talk to you guys every single year at all the different conferences and live events I go to, even if it's Zoom or whatever, is this helping you in practice and how? And that's what I want to keep my eye on going forward, because I think we got the test prep thing down based on the couple thousand people we've had come through this particular program. All right, all online, as I kind of alluded to before, no enrollment or registration period. You just come in when you're ready, all on demand. Everything's downloadable. The only thing you really have to be online for is to pass some tests I'm going to show you in a minute to pass the course part. So you're going to think of it like part one or part A course, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then part two or part B is test prep, just getting ready for the certification exam. So because you can download, copy, print, save everything, including the videos, well, you could just, on your commute or whenever, you could watch those by MP4 or convert them to MP3 and just listen to them, whatever. You really don't even have to be online for most of this. Really wanted this to be as convenient for you as possible. All right, here is that great loaded question that you asked me earlier on expectations. So first of all, you've already seen the 100 to 200 hours, but most of our candidates are experienced in the business. And if they have less than 5, it's like this individual who asked earlier, he or she's got 3 years-ish, but just finished their CFP. So they've already got some book smarts because they just went through a pretty rigorous CFP regimen. So what I'm saying is this is a higher level individual, a higher level candidate, whether it's 10 or 20 years experience or 5 years experience, give or take, and some other certifications like CFP. So I don't think you could take a 2-year person and all they've ever done is their Series 7. It wouldn't be 200 hours. It would probably be 300, 400, 500, 600 hours because they just don't have any experience and they haven't studied this at this kind of level before. So 100 to 200 hours does, according to our candidates in the survey, catch easily the majority of our candidates. Now, are you 100 or are you 150 or are you 200? I don't know. I don't want you to rush it. I want you to take as much time as you need. When are you going to get another chance to study in a program like this and really up your game? Now, you can download everything, and I encourage you to do that. Just don't share it with anybody. And then just create your own library that you refer back to over the next few years. That's great. But I would take this opportunity to really just dive in, dig in, not just about the test, but just master as much as you can while you're here, because it may be a few more years going forward before you jump in. Of course, it all depends on your experience, study habits, focus, right? A challenge for some people. All those things factor into how many hours is it going to take you. I think the record for CPWA is a little shorter on SEMA. I think it's 3 or 4 weeks. Now, that person there's been a few of them, but they were very experienced, 10 or more years in the business, working with high net worths, had CFPs, all of them, that knocked it out in about a month. And I wouldn't recommend you do that, even if you can, because maybe you're just not taking the opportunity to slow down and learn and nail some things down. But yeah, 100 to 200 hours. That's why we say 6 months. Look, if you're studying 10 hours a week, that's 40 hours a month. You should certainly, most of you, get through all of this in 6 months or less, really like 4 or 5 months once you dive in. And 10 hours, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. I think that's the what you're shooting for. I get it. Sometimes it's going to be you're really going to be busy and you can't squeeze out 10 hours in a week. But some hours maybe you can put in 15 and catch up. But I think if you can do 8 or 10 hours a week, that's good. That's solid. If you look out over the next few months and you go, I think I could squeeze out two, maybe four, I don't know if that's enough because this is deep stuff, as most of you know. And so it's that whole thing about efficiency. When you're getting into deep content, it can take some of our brains 5, 10, 15 minutes just to get acclimated to the new content we're looking at versus the phone calls with clients or talking with my wife and kids and whatever. So because of that, I think you want to have nice chunks of 1, 2 hour here and there. Go for 8 to 10 hours. That's your ideal scenario. All right. So we already talked a little bit about nuts and bolts, but here they are again. So 7,300, 7,295 is our cost. So on the surface, that looks more expensive, but it's not. If you choose Booth, I think they're 69.95, but then you got to buy test prep from IWI, and that's 4 to 600 according to their website, whichever package you buy. But that being said, I wouldn't choose us just because we're a little cheaper. I think what you want to do is do your due diligence, just like you're doing now. Learn as much as you can in a reasonably short period of time on our program, what you're doing, and then do the same on Chicago or the IWI non-university program. That definitely is the cheapest because there's no university affiliation that you get to have forever after that. But do your due diligence on each of them. Let it kind of soak in a little bit. I think your intuition, if you have any experience in the business, will lead you towards one of the three. Ongoing registration, where I talked about that, you do have 365 days. You have a year of access. That's what the program fee buys you. It's all inclusive, but only for a year. As you see here, and we do have people do it because their firm is paying for it usually. They just got busy and they just put it on the back burner and they're like, I'll come back and do it next year. It's going to be $2,250 extra dollars. But they're like, oh, I won't mention the firms, but oh, my firm's paying for it, so I'll let them do that. But we do have a fair amount, about a third or independent, and they're not being reimbursed. Their firm wouldn't pick up the 2250. Not a problem. Just download everything. I already told you could do that, and you'll see that in the course, the program as well. All you got to do is pass the test to pass the course online in your first year. Download all the test prep study off your own hard drive and test whenever you can. So not an issue. People who do the extra year for 2250, they just do it for convenience and usually because somebody else is paying it for them, but shouldn't be an issue for you. All right, so I talked high level anyway about part one and part two. Let me break it down a little bit for you so you can kind of know what to expect in terms of learning tools and resources. So as you saw on one of the early slides, IWI has 4 modules, 11 sections within those 4 spread across the 4 modules. So why get, silly creative on that? Let's just stick to that. And so we're going to have lectures at the course level, part A or part 1, that just walk you through that. Tax, investments, asset protection, state planning. Let's just go through those in video form and then have you take tests at basically the end of each of those 11 sections. These tests are anywhere from about 10, 15 questions to maybe 30 questions. And you can take them as many times as you need to, and they're not proctored. The CPWA certification exam is proctored, but our test is not. It's not for academic credit. We expect you to be on your honor, and there's a Yale honor code that you'll, attest to. That being said, you can take it as many times as you need to. We just need some proof that you were doing the work, even though this is not for academic credit, to give you a certificate from Yale School of Management that says you have completed this course. There's a custom reading library that I created years ago, and I add to it every year. It's around 2,500 pages now, but unlike in the old days where you remember some of our classes like read 5 chapters and show up next Thursday and we'll have a lecture and talk about it. The readings are not the core part of your learning. I think they're really important, but they're for a deeper dive. You're going to do most of your learning, and I mean the vast majority, through the video lessons. And in the course level, all I want you to do, as you'll see, of course, we have posted as guidance in the program itself. I just want you to watch the videos just like if you were in New Haven in the classroom. It's just we're in the Yale studio teaching in this on-demand course. I just want you to take notes. Don't even worry about the exam. Just take notes, get engaged, learn what you can, take those short tests after each section, move on. So that's only going to take you about 30 to 40 hours, but that's going to build a really solid foundation for you for when you get to the next slide, which is test prep. So we're going to send you an email. Congratulations, Jim, you passed the course. We are sending your name to IWI, just letting them know that you have completed that part of your requirements. And then and only then will the test prep pop open to you. Now, we got a whole lot of tools. You're going to use videos, yes, but really it's mostly about application, examples, tons of practice questions. All 3 of these assets are the most important assets in our program. Guidance by me in each of the 11 sections. I do those once a year, and it's like, and Ross, who's one of the other instructors that works with you guys with me on a regular basis in this program, we're just asking, what have you seen? What did you not see? What surprised you? We can talk about all of those things with you guys. We just can't talk about any specific wording of any question you or I remember about the exam. That's the hard red line we can't cross. So that gives us tons of great information because we spend hours every year talking to you guys. And I can now give you a video in each of the 11 sections saying, see this right here on the topic list? They test it like it's not every time, but almost every time. You really need to nail those examples and practice questions down. See these next few? Yeah, they just, it's regular, but it's not all the time. So it's kind of in the middle. Flip a coin on whether you're going to get a question in this area. And then see these down here? They almost never test on them. And they certainly have not been tested on them the last year. So I'd still read the slides and do the practice questions in those areas. But I wouldn't get too worked up about it because you're probably not going to get tested. So that sets the stage, and then you're spending the rest of your test prep time with us in the test prep summary slides. There's anywhere from about 50 to 150 slides in each section. And again, it's all about test prep now. It's not about taking this into your practice and helping your clients per se. It's about what do we think you will and won't see on the test without specific wording on any question, and just helping you get ready for that. And then hundreds of practice questions. Actually, we're around 1,000, maybe a little bit more than 1,000 now, including different mock exams and different ways to take questions just to keep it fresh. The only heads up I'll give, and we'll move on, is this is not like the series exams. This is more challenging. The questions are more detailed. They're more application-based, fact patterns, client situations, that kind of thing. So it's not about memorization like it was for us, most of us in the securities exams world. And so I need you to go through the examples. I need you to go through all the slides. I need you to look at test questions in different ways, different scenarios. So this is a little deeper dive than many of you are used to. But for example, the person that just came out of CFP, yeah, this is more applied than that, but at least that was more applied than your securities exam. So there's kind of a pecking order in test prep land, if you will. But these 3 are critical. You got to review all of these ad nauseum, and if you do, you'll have a great shot at passing this test, or you should, on your first attempt. All right, CPWA exam nuts and bolts here. You can go to IWI's website or the CPWA candidate handbook. Send me an email, jim.dobbs@yale.edu. I'll be happy to send you the handbook along with the topic list if you don't have a copy handy. 135 questions, 10 are beta unscored. You won't know which ones those are. All of the legitimate certification exams do that. So you just take them all like they're being scored. I give you some ideas on how to identify those in the test prep, as you can imagine. 4 hours. Is that enough time? Well, yeah, if you're well prepared, but if you're not, then you're going to be scrambling right down to the end. Give you a lot of test prep and test management tools. Calculator. You are going to need a calculator. I'm going to say no more than about a handful of questions. Would you actually need a financial calculator? Although you cannot use a statistical calculator on this exam. Here's the list from the candidate handbook of those that are allowed. If you don't have one or you're not sure if yours is best, go to this professor friend of mine in Colorado. His website's free, tvmcalcs.com. And he's even got a page, which calculator should I choose? Are you taking CPWA? Are you taking CFP? You're taking CFA? And then he gives you some ideas. These two, though, are the most popular among my students, my candidates in this program. Spend about an hour going through about 12 to 15 examples he's got for you in his website. That'll be a great primer for you before you get to us. Okay, just a little bit here. Pass rates you can find on IWI's website. Most, as you see in the bottom data point there, more candidates come to the Yale program than any other program, and I don't think it's that close in terms of market share. That being said, so we're driving the pass rate. I can't give you our specific pass rate because they don't allow that. Boy, do I wish they would, because I think it's a real competitive advantage. I'm just happy to say that the vast majority of our students, our candidates, do not have to take this test again. They pass on a first attempt. That's no guarantee, but if you do what we ask you to do and follow the guidelines and study the material, I think you're going to have a real good shot. All right, almost last here. And so pile in those last minute questions that we'll have right at the top of the hour. Um, Again, I've been doing this a long time, so I at least know academically, in practice even, and on the test where you might struggle, or at least where a lot of candidates will struggle. So I can get ahead of that with little special notes and exercises and extra examples and practice questions, and some short videos in the program from me as well. I send you guys, it gets old, I'm sure, weekly announcements, if you will, based on when you come into the program, just to give you some encouragement, give you some do's and don'ts, some tips that I've seen, things that work, some things that don't work for candidates in getting through this effectively and efficiently without wasting a lot of time. Discussion board's awesome. That's one of the first places you're going to go because as you see here, it's not built as an academic program. It's not part of a degree program, of course. So we had to put some limitations on it for content. It's the only limit you have, but for content related questions. Jim, I'm not sure if I know the difference between a CRAT and a CRUT, even though there's a lot of information here. Can somebody help me with that? Or, anything related to the content itself. You have a limit of 12 questions. We track that. Only about 4%, maybe it's 3.5% of our CPWA participants, candidates, use their 12 questions. Now, I encourage you to use them all. They're there for you. But a very small percentage of our candidates even ask their 12 questions, but that is the limit. And the discussion board's so great. I keep a lot of those discussions up there because they're like great FAQs. So like you don't want to burn one of your 12 questions and you got a question on AMT calculation. Well, go in there. Chances are good there's going to be a couple of back and forths that I've left up there because I thought they would be helpful for somebody having a question there. But I did want to mention the very last line item there. Look, if you ever have a question on timing, your study schedule, here's how I'm studying, Jim or Ross, this is my study plan. Does that look or sound good based on what you've seen? No limits on that. I want to make sure you have a good study plan and you feel super confident in it. So then it's just about carving out the time and plugging yourself into the content. So yeah, no limits on questions like, is my study plan a good one or do I need to tweak it? All right, I'll let you, for sake of time, go into our website. Got all the full bios. There's a handful more of great instructors, but you probably already recognize some of the names. Toby's outstanding. I've worked with him at 2 universities now and a number of different programs, not just certification programs, in terms of curriculum and live events and that kind of thing. Michael Kitsis needs no introduction. John Nersessian is outstanding. Richard Joyner was actually developing the curriculum before I came into CPWA when they said we need to make this a certification. He does most of your tax heavy lifting, along with Steve Siegel. So they are a great combination there, but I would encourage you to jump onto the website to check that out. I'll just say this, we take this very seriously, the scores we get from you guys, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So we work it hard every year. There's a number of us that do this in this particular program. That being said, we're not perfect. And everybody has a different learning style and preference. So we have to teach to the middle with the methods, but give you resources like videos, application exercises, practice questions, readings, etc. So you can kind of gravitate to where you feel most comfortable. But as you'll see in the program, I recommend you use everything we've got, even if it's not your preferred style. All right, you can register through, well, not register, apply through our website, but it's really just going to send you to IWI's website. So you probably just go there and on CPWA homepage in IWI's website, I think it says apply now or apply here. And you would just click on that when you're ready to do your online application. And here's Rachel and my contact information. Got any questions on Yale School of Management? Send those to Rachel. She'll be happy to help you. Anything certification related, industry related, especially CPWA core topics, shoot me an email. If we need to have a short phone call, be happy to schedule that with you. Okay, so that's it. I'm done, but I think we've got some questions. Let's just jump into those, Rachel.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this question is, while this program is geared towards high net worth clients with 5 million plus, can this content be boiled down to still be helpful with clients in the 1 to 5 million range, assuming the further down you go, the less applicable the content is for them?
Yeah, and I would agree with that last part of your statement part of the question. It will be less applicable. I think it will be helpful. So two thoughts after that statement. One, if you're not dealing with a lot of high net worths and you don't necessarily plan to, then I think CFP is probably the better choice if you don't already have that one. Takes you a little bit longer, but you're going to get more content across the board. I think that's a good place to start. However, if you're moving into the high net worth space or want to see those unique challenges, and again, they're much more complicated, as you would imagine, than most of your clients in CFP land and my clients in CFP land back in the day, then CPWA could be a good place to go. So I think in your situation, it may have more to do with, do you already have CFP or CHFC? And are you going to be moving into the high net worth space soon? This will certainly give you a head start on the knowledge side in that regard. Hopefully that helps.
Okay. And then this person asked, what if you have some college experience, no degree, but you spent 20 years in the financial industry climbing up the ranks? Can you somehow qualify for CPWA?
Yeah, good question. I don't know because IWI they have a committee that makes those calls. From what I understand, you'll want to reach out to IWI. Just go into the CPWA page and go to it's probably Ashlyn Costley, and you'll email her. So her email is, you may want to write this down. So this I'll say slowly, a costley at i-w.org. ACOSTLEY, ACOSTLEY at i-w.org. And she can answer your question. Good one, though.
Okay, and it looks like we have a final question here. Can you take this exam at a proctored location or online?
Ooh, love it. Yeah, in the old days, it was just location, but now you can take it online at your house or your business. You're probably going to take it at your business because a proctor's going to have to come up through your system and take control of part of your system. Most companies that I know of would never allow somebody to do that, but you can do that. But you'll see if you come into our program, you'll see some of my guidance on that. Pass rates, not just for our students, but for all candidates, they're lower. Now, not like by 20 percentage points, but they're noticeably lower for people who do that. I think it's probably because, like, if I'm taking it at my home office or whatever, maybe I'm not as, just energized and ready to go focused. Maybe that's part of it. As you'll see in our program, the biggest heads up I give you, if you're going to go that route, take it distance online, not in a proctored center. It easily could take 30 minutes for them to get you set up. Like, okay, we've got your proctor, do the room scan. They gotta go in and shut down some of the things in your computer to make sure you're not cheating. Okay, do another room scan. I mean, we're talking 30 minutes. If you're like me, I'd be like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to test. What do you mean 30 minutes? And sometimes it's longer. So if you don't wear patience, like I don't wear it sometimes so well, then I think going into the testing center is better. But look, for some of you, you might have to drive an hour and a half to get to a testing center if you don't live in a big city. So that could be a viable option. Good question.
Okay, looks like those are all of our questions.
All right, great. Hey, I hope that was helpful, you guys. If you have any other questions, more specific, especially, send me an email. I'll be happy to talk by email or give you a call or whatever. Help you make the best decision you can, because again, I know your time is of the most importance. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Rachel.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. And thanks to all of you for joining us and for submitting all of your questions. For more information, you can visit our website or reach out to us directly with any additional questions. The website is in the chat. This webinar, including the video recording and the slides, will be shared via email in the coming days. So while we hope to see you in our program, we truly hope that you find a program and a path that's the best fit for you. Thank you so much again for sharing your time with us. This concludes the webinar.